Good morning. Thank you to Ross and to Margaret. That was beautiful. Good morning and welcome to the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. I am not Reverend Carol. She is having a great time. If any of you have been following her on Facebook, she's certainly having a great time in England and Ireland right now, and we wish her well. Good morning to those of you in the stream of life, and good morning to each of those of you who are here with us. Again, I'm Scott Murchison. I'm a licensed practitioner here at this spiritual community, and I'm in my senior year, stepping into my senior year now in ministerial school, and so grateful I can actually see the horizon and the light coming at me is not a train anymore. It's actually the end of the tunnel, and I'm so grateful. So, our mission here, or our vision here, is awakening personal transformation. And our mission is teaching tools for positive change. And so, our theme for this year is your joyous life. And if any of you have been in the small groups and working with the book, The Happiness Project, that we are working with this year, you know that we are looking at this theme of happiness and living a joyous life, and we're kind of going deeper. I mean, Gretchen, she has a message that she's sending out in the book, and yet we want to go kind of take that message and then go a little bit deeper with it. And so this month, the theme is Eternity is Now. And hopefully, yeah, there we go. The idea is for us to touch eternity. So that means, and we've listened this month, we started out with Reverend Carol at the beginning of the month, looking at several aspects of this thing called eternity. And the first week she spoke on Mother Earth and forgiveness. And that's when we were in the week of, or the time of celebration of Forgiveness Day. Bob Plath and the work that he's been doing in the world with forgiveness. And then the next week she spoke on mindfulness practice and gave us some idea of what that is. And I'm going to kind of talk about that in just a minute and kind of go a little bit deeper in that around a greater theme. And then last week, Reverend Mary was so gracious in taking us through this thing called eternity. And what does it really mean to talk about this thing called eternity? Because eternity is a long time, isn't it? It's a very, very long time. In fact, it is eternal. It never ends. And so, I want to talk about not looking at the expanse of eternity, the Big Bang, supposedly a Big Bang, until the end of ends. There is no end. But I want to look at right here and right now. And in the book, The Happiness Project, Gretchen Rubin goes on about, she's in the time in this month about being grateful. So I want to talk for a moment about gratitude and stepping into that mindset of gratitude in a way that brings eternity into the now moment. The E-Dictionary says the definition of gratitude is the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation, and to return kindness. So that ability to take in what is happening all around me and be aware of it and take it in fully and truly appreciate it and then give it back. I like that as an idea of gratitude. And so in looking at how do we begin talking about gratitude, it's a big subject, it's a big topic, and our altar for the day was created by Lori Greer, a practitioner formerly of this community, and she has blessed us this morning by coming back and giving us, and she's actually a peer of mine in ministerial school now, which is so exciting. Her altar today is about the overflow of gratitude, the hands with the pearl, holding the pearls. And of course the color pink in the roses is for thanksgiving and gratitude, being grateful. And then the idea of time and being timeless. You can't see it, but there's actually a picture of a clock laying down that every 5 minutes on the hands it says now. Now is the time, and then the flow of life in the bowl. And so, and the color itself is, I should have worn my shirt that was that color. I feel like I didn't get the memo today. I think I wore that color the last time I spoke, so I'm like, oh, maybe somebody will remember. But when I was researching and kind of starting out with the idea of gratitude, I ran across a Pinterest quote. It's not happy people who are thankful. It's thankful people who are happy. And if we can look at it that way, we might have a shift in our life. So I was reminded of a story. An old, tired dog wandered into the yard one day, and a friend of mine was telling me this story, and he said, I could tell from his collar and well-fed belly that he had a home. He followed me into the house, down the hall, and fell asleep in the corner. An hour later, he went to the door, and I let him out, and he went home. The next day, he came back, resumed his position in the hall, and he slept for an hour. Then he got up and continued, and this continued for several weeks. Would come into my house and sleep for an hour in the same corner and walk out and go home. Curiously, one day I pinned a note to his collar that said, every afternoon your dog comes to my house for a nap. The next day he arrived, the dog arrived again in his usual way with a note that was a different note that was pinned to his collar that said, he lives in a house with 10 children. He's trying to catch up on his sleep. Can I come with him tomorrow? So it's the idea of just being grateful and being aware of what's going on in the circumstances around us right here and right now. And we're always like that dog. We're always searching for that place of comfort. Now, what I would suggest, now Joan Rivers actually says of gratitude, yesterday is history. She actually said it, not says it. She is transitioned. But yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is God's gift. That's why we call it the present. Now, how often in your life have you've been physically standing right where you are, but you really hadn't been there, right? We're really somewhere else in the past. Most of us, most of the time, we're either in the past or we're looking into the future. And see, there's a big gap. There's an eternal gap between the past and the future. when really we should be standing in the present. And I was thinking back to a time in my life when I had that love for the first time that was actually returned. How many of you have experienced that in your lives? You don't have to raise it if you're with someone that that you really not let them know about your past. But I remembered that we were looking and we would actually sit and just sit and stare into each other's eyes for hours. And every now and then, kind of make out and then maybe say a word or talk, but then we would kind of step back and just continue to look in each other's eyes. And this happened for like hours, for like the first month of our relationship. That's how the evening started out for us. And guess what happens today? Anyone I meet, I gauge and I judge against that past experience almost 15 years ago. And if I'm not staring in their eyes longingly and feeling that intimate connection right away, I dismiss it. Now, how many of us do that with anything in our lives today? If it's a job, if it is a new friend, if it is a new experience, if it is someone that we're beginning to date, how often do we, instead of being present right in the moment, how often do we go back? I mean, it may be a nanosecond in your mind. I mean, physically, I'm standing here in front of you, looking in your eyes, but I'm really back there. I'm back there in the past. And I'm gauging you, and I'm gauging my feelings and my emotions and my experience in this moment against a past reflection, against a past memory. And all it is a memory. And if any of you work in the legal profession, or you know anything about judges or lawyers, or you watch Criminal Minds on television, whatever it is, whatever your experience is, Law and Order, whatever your experience is with the criminal justice system, you know that probably the least reliable testimony is from an eyewitness. Why is that? Because we're always in the present moment standing there, but we're always judging what we're seeing through the lens of the past. All of us are coming from that place most of the time in our lives. The Buddha said, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, nor to worry about the future, but to live the present moment wisely and earnestly." So if we want to actually fully live in the moment, in the experience of the moment, and fully appreciate it, and fully experience it right as it is, as it's happening, we can only be in this moment. And that's the interesting paradox of this thing called time and against eternity. We're always either looking in the past or looking toward the future, hoping that what we're going to have happen in the future will replicate something that happened in the past, or we want to step away from something that happened in the past and we don't want to live it in our present or in the future. I was raised by a father. Most of my memory of my father was he was an alcoholic, and when he was in his transitioning process, they were giving him a beer with every meal, because it's like they thought he was going to go into DTs or something. And but he wasn't that. He was a functioning alcoholic all of my life. And actually, it turns out my partner, the one that I stared in the eyes with every night for hours on end, it turns out he was a functional alcoholic as well. And so I was pulling into my life my past experience. I was living my past and my present all the time. It was my experience. And now I can't speak to any of you, but I, and I wonder for myself if I go out and, I go out to a party or I go out to a club and I meet friends and I might meet someone there and they might, be a little bit tipsy or I can smell something on their breath. And hi, thank you for sharing. Thank you. I see someone else I need to talk to on the other end of the room. When it could just be that, they just had a bad day and their time went on. And I misread the situation because of my past experience that I don't want to replicate in this moment. And I might have just negated the love of my life. Or I might have just negated the person in my life and in my experience who was going to change and transform my life. But I said, thank you for sharing, and moved on because I was living in my past, not my present moment. Now, when we look at this thing called gratitude and gratefulness, it starts right where you are. Right where you are, this moment, right here, right now, is where gratitude can begin. Now, I know some of you are like, well, yeah, Scott, but you just don't know my life. It's like, man, I'm like, I just got fired, or, it's like, oh, man, my partner, yeah, that alcohol, yeah, my partner, yeah. We have all of our things that we might be carrying into this moment. And I hear this all the time in religious science. It's like, it's, you're kind of airy-fairy. You're kind of, you're ignoring the reality. It's done unto you as you believe is what Ernest Holmes says. And so that we teach that as it becomes kind of rote for many of us that, yes, it's change our thinking and change our outer experience. We teach tools for positive change here. And yes, that's true. But you don't understand my experience. You don't understand where you don't understand. No, you really don't know. But do I need to know? Because the point is, yeah, we all have a past. We all have a past. We all have experiences that made us who we are, that got us to this moment. But gratitude can begin in this moment right where you are. The Buddhists call the close applications of mindfulness satipatthana. There are 4 of them. The first is the close study and observation of the body. And yeah, I've been huffing and puffing a lot when I walk up and down steps lately, and I just cringe when I see my picture sometimes up here on the slides, and I'm like, man, who's that fat guy? And so it's like I'm starting to kind of be present in my body again. So I've been working out at the gym. I've been running. I've been there every day except yesterday I had a meeting all day. But I've been going every day to do something to get my body moving again, and I'm actually starting to see some results in that in my life. But be present in my feeling tone of my body in this moment. And the second close scrutiny is of feelings. Now, the Buddhists focus on pain, pleasure, and indifference. Those are the 3 that they focus on in this mindfulness. In this exercise of mindfulness. But between pain and pleasure, and what do they put in the middle? Indifference. So where am I? I'm indifference. Or I'm somewhere in that spectrum in between in my feelings. And as I described earlier, it's like I might be living my present moment checking my body, checking my feelings when I meet someone new for the first time against the past. Against the past experience of the feelings I had in my body, that feeling tone that resonated with me when I was staring in someone's eyes and making that intimate connection. And I'm not feeling it, so it's like, oh, must not be the one. Thank you for sharing, move on. But it's to be mindful of our feelings and not look to those as the driver of our outer experience. Just observe them, be mindful of them, be aware of them, and be aware when they come up and be aware what they're saying. And instead of saying to the person in the outside world, thank you for sharing, have a nice day, say to those feelings, thank you for sharing, have a nice day. And be present for the person in front of me. The fourth is the mental states and emotions. And, it's like, who can relate to this? I'm a road rager. And boy, I cut people off and I get that flip-off-itis. When someone cuts me off or they're driving too slow or, and surely none of you are like that out there. And, and I have to admit, I'm there. It hits me when I'm not present in the car. I'm living in an emotional experience and I'm reacting to the emotions around me and flip-off-itis comes up and, the middle finger comes in somewhere and, like, wow, you're a minister. You're a minister in training. Where'd that come from? And it's when I'm aware of my body, my feelings, and the emotions that come up in that moment, I'm like, you know what? Thank you for sharing. Have a nice day. Being fully present to your experience is what being mindful looks like in that instance. And the fourth is the mental imagery. That's the thoughts we think. And so, and as I said earlier, Ernest Holmes, it's like it's done unto you as you believe. Change your thinking, change your experience, change your outer world. So it's like, yes, that's true. But if we can be mindful of our thoughts at each moment, then we can have a different outer experience right in this moment. If we can control those thoughts and the mental imagery that come up in our minds. The pathway to gratitude is paved with forgiveness. And so I want to go back to talking about what Reverend Carroll talked about at the beginning of the month and what Bob Plath has been so gracious in his life with is the reminder to be forgiving. When we can forgive, you know what? I forgive myself for going back to the past in every moment of every day. I forgive myself right where I am right now. I forgive me for doing that, for dismissing and negating the experience of the present and the person in front of me by looking at the past and judging the present from the container of the past. Now, when you look at gratitude from that vantage point, you have a much grander experience. Wayne Dyer, in his book, Manifest Your Destiny, writes, gratitude is a way of experiencing the world with love rather than judgment. The three most common obstacles to an attitude of gratitude originate in the mental processes. The Buddhists for thousands of years have been teaching this, probably the Hindus for thousands more. Religion and spirituality from time immemorial, eternity, has been saying the same thing. Forgiveness and releasing judgment is what it's about in stepping into the moment. And he says that this represents the way of thinking that impedes gratitude. The first is fault finding. Looking for the faults in the person in front of me based on past experience, positive or negative, whatever it is. looking at the past. Complaining. You know, I do fall into that every now and then. I'm a Capricorn. I'm a good Capricorn. You know, and if I buy into the, you know, the stereotype of a Capricorn, it's we're pessimistic. You know, we look to the negative first. And I always go to that negative place first. Now, there's lots of great and grand and glorious attributes of a Capricorn, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind because I'm negative. I go to that first. That's the one I see first. Complaining. So it's being mindful of body, feelings, emotions, and thoughts in the moment. Can help me step back from this thing called complaining. And as I said, you know, gratitude begins in this moment right where you're at. So, you know, let go of the outer experiences. Stop complaining about them and stop looking at the quote-unquote reality and accept the truth. There is a larger truth. Gratitude is the way to get there. And then the third way that he writes about is taking what you have for granted. So when I'm working with someone in a practitioner session on an issue and it's around complaining, they're in complaining about their experience and they can't kind of step out of that experience to find a moment of gratitude. It's like, well, you're sitting here, aren't you? Listening to me, aren't you? That means you're breathing. How about be grateful for that? Start right there. If that's the only place you can start from there. And build a mindfulness and gratitude practice from that point. Hey, I'm breathing another breath. Wow. Cool. If that's what it takes. And look around at all you have in the moment. There's a great song that is one of the most powerful songs. It shakes me to the core of my being every time I hear it. And this is not to the Karen Drucker song Grateful, although I love that song. But it's the song Grateful, and it's from the play Urban Myths. And it's sung by Brian Lane Green, and it is one of the most powerful songs. I encourage you to hear it if you ever can. Here's the words of the first verse. I've got a roof over my head. I've got a warm place to sleep. Some nights I lie awake counting gifts instead of counting sheep. I've got a heart that can hold love. I've got a mind that can think. There may be times when I lose the light and let my spirit sink. But I can't stay depressed when I remember how I'm blessed. Grateful. Truly grateful I am. Now, when you look at life through that lens, it gets a little bit tougher to take this moment for granted. I have a roof over my head. Now, I may not have a roof over my head. But and I know in this community, I have friends who will take me in, who will find a place for me, who will help me. And that's a place to be grateful. Now, when you can find that place to be grateful in, then exercise it daily. Building an attitude of gratitude where that's the first thing that comes along, that's the first thought you think when you're driving in traffic and flippifitis wants to come up. Or when the boss is, when the deep-toned, we need to talk. From the boss, or from the spouse, or the mate. Instead of going that pit in the stomach going, oh my gosh, what's going on? It's like, just be in the moment and be grateful that I have this next breath. And when you can get to that place, eternity shrinks into now. And there are some practices. I tried to get some of these up on the slide, but I'll give them to you. And Gretchen goes on about some of the examples of ways to build an attitude for gratitude, an attitude of gratitude in the book. The first one is journaling. Do a gratitude journal. We have a jar back there for happiness. Drop your happinesses in. We have some tools that we teach here in this community, as all Centers for Spiritual Living and all of religious science does, and that's mindfulness meditation. Go within, close the eyes, and just breathe for a moment and stare at the blackness behind the eyelids. And just be fully present to the breath and to the moment. And that expanse of eternity will immediately shrink to this present moment. We also do things like affirmations and mantras. Every morning, make it your habit to do an affirmation in the morning. If any of you know our friend who used to be the music director here, Reverend Dr. Melissa Felipe. She and her spouse, Reverend Z. Egloff, they have a daily practice. It's called the Magic Five. And the practice is ritual. Create a ritual. And their daily practice is they sit before they go to bed every evening and list out the 5 things that they are grateful for this day. Now that sounds simple and easy, but they actually carry it one step further. Then they list the 5 things they're going to be grateful for tomorrow, as if they're in the present tense. I am grateful that I bounded out of bed with energy and enthusiasm. I'm grateful that I got to my job on time, easily and effortlessly, without pain and without angst and suffering. Whatever it is for you, speak it as if it's already so. And guess what? Well, religious scientists will tell you, you just put it out into the law. It's going to happen. This or better. There are other tools that you can use. Songs, I just listed this. Have a playlist that's just gratitude songs. There are tons of New Thought and even Christian and contemporary, even country music. There's some good country music musicians that I have in my gratitude playlist. And so, whatever it is for you. Now, there's another thing that I want to focus on and emphasize in this moment, and that is, if you really want to experience an attitude of gratitude, then give back. Be grateful for the bounty and the experience in your life, and then give back. In this community, we have Heart to Heart. We have the events team that is always putting on something interesting. We have a One Home initiative to find us one building, one place that is ours for all of our things, all of the things and activities that we do as a community. We're looking to partner with and to reach out to organizations in our greater community, and like the Rest program is doing now. We're looking for others like that. If you know of any organization that speaks to your heart and resonates with you that you would like to give back to, let us know. Diane Harmony, in her book 5 Gifts for an Abundant Life, writes, "Gratitude is a distiller of emotions. When you give thanks, you are purifying your emotional response to life by focusing on love and leaving fear, doubt, worry, shame, and blame behind." The simple truth is that you cannot at one and the same time experience appreciation and any other emotional responses. As you continue to be grateful, the reactions that are lesser, darker, and narrower tend to weaken and lose their momentum, leaving you free to be light and loving. Leaving you free to be light and loving in the present moment. Isn't that what we're all after? To be loving in the present moment. And that's all it takes, is to just be grateful, to be present in this moment. And that is the bridge between eternity and now. Namaste. And so we have a practice this year that comes along with the Happiness Project, and it is our moment to go deeper. And so your going deeper thought for this week is gratitude bridges the gap between eternity and now and frees the present. And so I want to invite us for just a moment to practice that mindfulness and to be fully present in the body in this moment. Knowing that God is all that there is. There is no separation between me and thee. There is only I am. And I am so grateful for stepping into this space of thankfulness and gratitude. Living our lives from this place of an attitude of gratefulness. I am so blessed, and I know that each one of us is blessed. And if there is an area touching us that feels a little less than comfortable, we are grateful for that. As we step into this present moment and know that all is God. And so it is.